Good morning. Welcome to 최수진의 모닝스페셜. 여러분 안녕하세요. 8월 9일 금요일 저는 최수진입니다. Summer activities are probably the most precious ones as the vacation period that comes with it is very limited. As such, we need to have memorable plans for those few super precious weekends. And one plan in particular invites you to enjoy music and movies all at the same time. 네, 제15회 제천국제음악영화제가 어제 청풍호반 무대에서 화려한 막을 올렸습니다. 어제 개막식에서는 영화제 개막작 자메이카의 소울, 이나 데야드가 출연한 자메이카의 레게 뮤지션 키더스 아이, 윈스턴 맥아너프, 픽시 등이 특별 공연을 펼쳐서 분위기를 고조시켰는데요. 제천국제음악영화제는 오는 13일까지 옛 동명초등학교 청풍호반 문화의 거리 등에서 펼쳐집니다. Well, music and movies, what a great combination, don't you think? Well, the more inviting part of this festival is that the stage offers a different concert every day. If you haven't made plans for this weekend, why not stop by? And with that in mind, let me give you today's quiz question for the first hour. When musicians or actors perform on a stage, they generally sing or act 1번, live. 2번, it's alive. 네, 청취자 여러분의 많은 참여 기다리고 있겠습니다. 여러분의 퀴즈 정답 보내주신 분들 중에 총 5분께 추첨을 통해서 저자극 순한 비누 보내드리겠습니다. 또 여러분의 소식과 소감 그리고 방송 중 궁금한 질문 있으시면 보내주세요. 짧은 문자 50원, 긴 문자 100원에 샵 1045로 보내주시고요. 반디 게시판이나 카카오톡 플러스 이용도 가능합니다. Okay then, let's kick off today's show with today's global headlines. 세계 각국 언론사들의 어떤 헤드라인이 올라왔는지 살펴보는 시간입니다. Touch Global Headlines.
The government has announced plans to tighten customs clearance for coal ash from Japan.
정부가 일본산 석탄재의 수입 통관 절차를 대폭 강화하기로 했습니다.
Japan has approved the first export of high-tech materials to South Korea since it imposed export curbs on 3 key semiconductor materials last month.
일본 정부가 반도체 소재 3개 품목에 대한 수출 규제를 단행한 지 한 달여 만에 해당 품목의 수출 신청 한 건을 처음으로 허가했습니다.
U.S. President Donald Trump has added pressure on Seoul to increase its defense cost payments to Washington.
트럼프 미국 대통령이 우리나라의 주한미군 주둔 비용, 방위비 분담금 인상을 압박하고 나섰습니다.
Nations around the world are issuing travel advisories for the U.S. in the wake of recent mass shootings.
최근 미국에서 총격 사건이 연이어 발생하면서 미국 여행 시 주의를 당부하는 국가가 늘어나고 있습니다.
A 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck off Taiwan early on Thursday.
어제 새벽 대만에서 규모 6.0의 강한 지진이 발생했습니다.
Admissions to royal palaces and tombs will be free of charge from August 10th to 25th in a bid to revitalize the local tourism industry.
국내 관광 활성화를 위해 오는 10일부터 25일까지 고궁과 종묘, 조선 왕릉이 무료 개방됩니다. Well, with the headlines and much, much more, I'm joined by 월터 선생님. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you and a very spirited good morning to all of our listeners and any viewers out there. Hope everyone's enjoying their Friday. For many people, this marks the beginning of the weekend, but not for everybody, so spare a thought for those people who are continuing to work through the weekend.
Yes, indeed. But if you do get some time off and you like movies and music, why not head over to Checheon for the International Music and Movies Festival? That sounds like an exciting treat for many.
Yes, indeed. And I think as well, but you might have to help me out on this, I think EBS also has some sort of festival going on, perhaps a documentary festival.
That is correct.
I remember I went to that a few years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I've been to that, and it's quite interesting and the productions are very, very well done.
네, 그렇습니다. 한 일주일 후 EBS 국제 다큐멘터리 페스티벌도 시작이 됩니다. It's just around the corner. It opens on August 17th and it runs through until the 25th. And the 19th will be the day they will actually have the opening ceremony. 개막식은 19일 합니다.
Yeah, that often happens. They'll start playing the films before the actual
That's
official ceremonies are held to open it.
네, EDIF 2019도 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 자, 그리고 여러분이 방금 들으신 헤드라인은요, 모닝스페셜 홈페이지 헤드라인 다시 듣기에서 무료로 들으실 수 있습니다. 많은 이용 바랍니다. Let's go over the headlines.
Headline number 1. The Korean government has announced plans to tighten customs clearance on coal ash from Japan.
정부가 일본산 석탄재의 수입 통관 절차를 대폭 강화하기로 했습니다.
So the reason given for the move towards tightening these imports of the so-called coal ash is public safety. And the coal ash in question here is generated at, for the most part, Korean thermal power plants. And then when it's brought into Korea, it's used as a supplementary material when producing cement.
Right. And I understand that 99.9% of the coal ash that we import is from Japan. So that's almost 100%.
It is very nearly 100%. I'm not a mathematologist, but I think you're right on that. 99.9% of coal waste imports to Korea from Japan have occurred over the last 10 years. So there is some thought that, of course, in tightening these the restrictions on doing this, it may be somewhat of an imposition on Japan.
그렇습니다. 시멘트의 원료로 쓰이는 석탄재가요. 우리나라의 경우는 대부분 일본에서 수입을 하는데 이번에는 이 수입 통관 절차를 대폭 강화하기로 했습니다. Is this a retaliatory move against Japan?
Well, of course, that's a very interesting question. I can tell you this, however, the move to do this does come on the heels of the South Korean government holding off, actually, on its own decision to drop Japan from its list of trusted trading partners, or in other words, the so-called white list that we've heard so much about. There are actually white lists from both sides here of this situation. In addition to that, South Korea has said that it will create a new category in its export controls and then put Japan into that lower tier category. And that does seem to mimic or shadow the move made recently by Japan.
네, 일본에 대한 일종의 이제 반격으로 풀이되기도 하는데요. 수입 석탄재를 이제 국내산으로 대체하기 위한 방안도 지금 고려 중이다라는 소식입니다. Alright, let's leave that story there. But staying with Japan, let's go on to headline number 2.
Japan has approved the first export of high-tech materials to South Korea since it imposed export curbs on 3 key semiconductor materials last month.
일본 정부가 반도체 소재 3개 품목에 대한 수출 규제를 단행한 지 한 달여 만에 해당 품목의 수출 신청 한 건을 처음으로 허가했습니다.
So I'm sure our listeners will well remember that there are indeed 3 key materials that were subject to these export curbs or import restrictions, I guess, to Japan, to South Korea. One of them was something known as extreme ultraviolet photoresist. And that indeed has been the material that's been allowed to be sent to South Korea. Not only was that approval given, but it happened a lot quicker than most people expected. The maximum time, at least according to the regulations in Japan, is up to 90 days.
Right.
So many people were thinking, well, okay, it's going to take the maximum time of 90 days. But indeed, it was said to take some just 34 days, so happening much quicker than expected.
So we're looking at about a third of the initially anticipated time
Right.
that it was going to take. 애초 예상했던 것보다는 한 3분의 1 수준으로 이 심사 기간이 단축이 된 것이라고 풀이할 수 있을 것 같습니다. photoresist라는 말씀을 해주셨는데요. 반도체 기판에 바르는 감광액이라고 하죠. 이것에 대한 수출권이 승인됐다라는 게 일본의 발표고요. Has Japan changed its mind, do you think?
Well, again, that's a very good question, and if I had the answer to that, I may be very much in demand to give such an answer on many, many other outlets
What are
as well.
experts saying?
Well, experts are saying that, of course, we'll have to wait and see, and that's
Sure.
very much what happens in a lot of these cases. But perhaps one of the key players in this, President Moon Jae-in, he is again, of course, even in light of this shipment, or at least the permission of the shipment, he's again denounced Japan's export restrictions, calling for a diplomatic resolution. And he offered a quote saying that one wonders what Japan can gain from such a unilateral and retaliatory trade measure. Even if there is a gain, it would be short-lived. It would eventually be a no-win or a game with no winner and only victims.
And it seems that some pundits are actually saying that from Japan's part, it's not a dramatic change from what it initially said it would do, and so it could be playing with the press over in Japan.
There is that because, of course, yes, indeed, these import restrictions were placed, or these export curbs were placed on these items. However, after that, as they said, Korea was removed from the whitelist as well, but at the end of the day, the goods still are flowing. So I guess I don't want to say there's a good news in this case, certainly, but at least it's not as bad as everybody may have expected.
네, 일본 측은요, 일본의 수출 규제 조치가 금수 조치는 아니다. 그러니까 수출을 금지하는 것은 아니다라는 것을 어제 기자회견을 통해서 밝혔습니다. 그러니까 일본의 태도가 확 바뀌었다기보다는 여론전에 좀 밀리지 않으려는 움직임이 아닌가라는 분석도 있습니다. Let's go on to headline number 3.
U.S. President Donald Trump has added pressure on Seoul to increase its defense cost payments to Washington.
트럼프 미국 대통령이 우리나라의 주한미군 주둔 비용, 방위비 분담금 인상을 압박하고 나섰습니다.
Kind of a developing story, I suppose, in many ways, and it actually sort of kicked off earlier when John Bolton was both in Japan and in Korea. There was at that time some talk, a very large number of some $5 billion was being thrown around. It wasn't clear if that was in regards to both Japan and Korea, and it wasn't clear if that was a yearly amount or a total amount over some period. Nevertheless, now we have President Donald Trump saying similar things, not issuing that $5 billion number by any means, but certainly saying that the U.S. would like its allies to contribute more to shared defense costs.
He actually posted a Twitter yesterday. Do you call it a tweet? I think it is.
Yes, that's right.
A tweet on Twitter.
Yes.
And he said, you know, the relationship between the two countries is a very good one. Talks have begun. South Korea is a very wealthy nation, and therefore it will contribute to paying more. What has South Korea said about that?
Yeah, I think all of those things, nearly all of those things are indisputable, but however, perhaps one of them is somewhat disputable when he said that South Korea had agreed already to pay more, because indeed we had a response from South Korea. South Korea's foreign ministry issued a statement saying that the talks, the negotiations, the formal official negotiations in this matter have yet to begin. So while you have President Trump on one hand saying South Korea has indeed agreed to pay more, you have South Korea saying, well, we haven't actually had any official negotiations
There's
yet.
a huge discrepancy within the two sides there.
Yes.
트럼프 대통령은요, 어제 트위터를 통해서 한국은 굉장히 부유한 나라다라고 하면서 방위비 분담금을 더 내기로 했다라는 내용의 글을 올렸습니다. 하지만 우리 측에서는요, 외교부가 한미 방위비 분담금 협상은 아직 시작도 되지 않았다라는 입장을 밝혔습니다. All right, we'll have to see how this goes. I mean, there'll have to be some responses from Washington's side on that. But in the meantime, let's go on to our next headline.
Headline number 4. Nations around the world are issuing travel advisories for the U.S. in the wake of recent mass shootings.
최근 미국에서 총격 사건이 연이어 발생하면서 미국 여행 시 주의를 당부하는 국가가 늘어나고 있습니다.
So in a very general sense, several countries around the world are warning their citizens that traveling in the United States or to the United States could put them at risk of becoming a victim of a mass shooting. Just a partial list of some of the countries that we've compiled here. Uruguay has said so, Venezuela has said so, and surprisingly, even Japan has said so. Looking at Japan's statement there, their foreign ministry is cautioning Japanese citizens who are already residing in the U.S. to be alert for what they call the potential for gunfire incidents. And of course, this does come after the very recent spate of 2 mass shootings there in the U.S.
Right. Well, whether it's a warning or an advisory, it does seem like the trend is catching on in New Zealand and also in Ireland as well. We're seeing very similar moves taking place. 베네수엘라, 우루과이, 뉴질랜드, 아일랜드, 일본 등 많은 국가들이 미국 여행 시 주의를 해라. 그러면서 여행 자제를 경고하고 있습니다. 인권단체 국제 암네스티도 마찬가지로 그 여행주의보를 발령했다고 하죠. It does seem like it's not just countries but organizations as well that are saying, be careful if you're planning a trip to America.
Yes, indeed, you are correct in saying that. Amnesty International is also issuing its own warnings, global warnings there, of course, giving travel advisories saying to people who are planning to visit the U.S. to, quote, exercise caution and have an emergency contingency plan when traveling throughout the United States of America.
Right, and this is not something that you think about a lot. It's not something that's happened definitely much in the past. Travel advisories issued against traveling to America.
It doesn't happen often, although there are some past incidences. You mentioned New Zealand. They have also done so in the past, as has France and Germany. But you're right, it doesn't happen a lot.
Right. And I understand recently there was another incident that has made countries very worried around the world.
Well, indeed there is. So not only are we talking about the mass shootings here, of course, but there was very recently a serious knife attack in California. The suspect there was said to have several different knives and machetes, which are, of course, a much larger style of knife, and was using those in attacks there.
All right. Moving on, let's go on to our next story in Taiwan.
Headline number 5, a 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck off Taiwan early on Thursday.
어제 새벽 대만에서 규모 6.0의 강한 지진이 발생했습니다.
Well, if we can, we'll start with what may be the good news here first. There were no immediate reports of significant damage or casualties. However, this is still an ongoing story. We hope that doesn't change, but indeed it could. This 6.0 magnitude earthquake was said to have, of course, shaken buildings in the area and cut power to around 2,000 buildings. The quake itself was said to have taken place at a depth of 22 kilometers below the surface.
I do have an update. I think this needs to be clarified, but one particular source is saying that one person was killed due to the collapse of a building that was caused by the earthquake.
I see.
So an indirect effect.
Yeah, incidental fatality, but a fatality nonetheless. So it is tragic to hear that there is at least one report so far of one fatality there.
Indeed, but lots of power outages, as you can imagine. Traffic, not congestion, but stoppages altogether with trains as well. And a lot of people inconveniently going through the aftermath of this earthquake.
Yes, indeed. You mentioned train service there. Regional railway service in northern Taiwan was affected. There were also, of course, reports of gas and water leaks. Again, this was a 6.0 magnitude earthquake. It was back in 2016, of course, when Taiwan suffered a 7.6 magnitude quake. 1999. Pardon me. The 7.6 magnitude quake was in 1999, and in that quake, more than 2,000 people were killed.
Wow. 네, 이번 지진으로 인해서 일부 지역에서는 정전이 일어나고요. 열차 운행도 부분적으로 중단되는 피해가 속출했다는 소식입니다. I understand the core or the center of the earthquake was under the sea, but because it was so close to Taiwan, that's why it affected the nation.
Yes, indeed. As mentioned, it was, I believe, according to the reports I've seen, at a depth of some 22 kilometers. That was the epicenter of the quake.
The epicenter, yep, there we
But
go.
indeed, the proximity to Taiwan was indeed much closer than many people
36 kilometers
would have
and not
preferred.
far at all.
Yes.
네, 그렇습니다. 진원은 바닷속이었지만 이 거리가 대만으로부터 한 36km밖에 떨어지지 않았기 때문에 그래서 대만 전역에서 진동을 느낄 수 있었다고 합니다. Okay, and let's check our final headline.
Headline number 6, admissions to royal palaces and tombs will be free of charge from August 10th to 25th in a bid to revitalize the local tourism industry.
네, 국내 관광 활성화를 위해서 내일부터 25일까지 고궁과 종묘, 조선왕릉이 무료 개방됩니다.
And of course, that is a rather long period from the 10th to the 25th. And of course, not quite right in the middle, but close to the middle of that would be August 15th, Liberation Day here in Korea.
Right, yeah.
Obviously, a very significant event there as well. As stated in the headline, the National Cultural Agency said that this is being done to try to revitalize some of the tourism that may have dropped, I suppose, in the area. The last time that something similar to this was done was back in July of 2015. At that time, it was an attempt to try to bring the public back out amidst the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS epidemic that had struck Korea at that time.
In 2015, it was open for more than 2 weeks, as is the case this time around. But there have been cases where it was open for just a few days, free of charge.
Sure.
But we are looking at the total length of the free admissions here. And this year marks the 74th anniversary of, well, I suppose the 74th year since 광복절, as we call it, here. 그러니까 제74주년 광복절을 기념해서 이번에 이렇게 한 2주가량 경복궁, 창덕궁, 덕수궁, 창경궁 이 4대 궁가요. 그다음에 종묘, 조선왕릉이 무료로 개방됩니다. So our listeners could go and check those out from tomorrow onwards.
Well, we certainly hope that they do, and if they are doing that, if they have some time, if they could snap a picture and send it to us at some point,
Yeah.
of course, we always love to see what our listeners are up to.
Absolutely. It's going to be open all day, so not just during the daytime, but they have evening I suppose 야간 개장이라고 하나요? 야간
Yes,
관람,
some of-
evening openings as well.
Yes, indeed. Some of the palaces and some of the particular parts of palaces are open in the evenings, as well as several facilities that had not been open to the public previously, as we touched on yesterday, and more than just that, are also becoming open to the public.
Okay. Well, those were our headlines for this morning. Let's remind our listeners of the quiz.
Our quiz today asks this question. When musicians or actors perform on a stage, they generally sing or act blank. How do they sing or act? Would that be number 1, live, or number 2, it's alive?
Well, Morning Special right now is also this. We are not recorded. Right now, the time is 8:21 and 13 seconds. Going on to 15. Alright. 짧은 문자 50원, 긴 문자 100원에 샵 1045로 보내주시고요. 반디 게시판이나 카카오톡 플러스 이용도 가능합니다. 추첨을 통해서 총 5분께 저자극 순한 비누 보내드리겠습니다. 노래 듣고 올게요. This is an ABBA medley. Stars on 45 with more stars.